At least 26 people were killed and 20 wounded when a gunman opened fire inside a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. And of course, both left and right immediately began blaming the massacre on their own respective enemies, by conflating it with all white people, all left-wingers, all right-wingers, all atheists, whoever they hate the most. Now hands up, I've been at fault for that in the past too. But let's be honest, it's not only callous, it's just incredibly tedious at this point. But by the same token, the need to understand the motives and factors behind the attack serves two purposes. One, it gives us some clues to try to prevent it from happening again, and two, it at least offers some explanation, however twisted, of why it happened, which is also a psychological coping mechanism that humans crave after every senseless incident like this. So what do we know about the motive at this point? The gunman was a committed atheist who bothered his friends on Facebook by incessantly calling Christians stupid. And that doesn't mean all atheists bear responsibility. Just as the blame for Dylan Roof's massacre shouldn't have been put on all white people or all Christians, as many did. But what it does mean is that this could have been an anti-Christian hate crime. Imagine this, an Islamophobe relentlessly posts on Facebook about how stupid Muslims are, then goes and shoots up a mosque massacring 26 Muslims. Would the media say his motive was a mystery? No. If it was just a personal dispute, why try to slaughter everyone in the church? Now, it may come out that there was a personal motive, but if they come out and claim it had nothing to do with his hatred of Christians, it's gonna look very odd. What role, if any, did mind-altering SSRI drugs play in this massacre? Medication that creates a dissociative mood that puts people in an emotionally dead, trance-like state. Remember, the significant majority of mass shooters in the US have been on SSRI drugs. But the media never wants to talk about it because pharmaceutical giants who produce drugs like Zoloft, Prozac and Paxil spend around $2.4 billion on direct-to-consumer television advertising every single year. The reaction to the shooting from the alt-left was, of course, completely predictable. They labelled the NRA a terrorist group despite no mass shooting having ever been carried out by an NRA member. They blamed the Second Amendment and gun owners despite the fact that it was a responsible armed citizen who stopped the attack. They blamed all white people, despite the fact that white people are actually underrepresented in mass shootings. They were also angry at me because Google linked to some of my tweets. Right, so 26 people have just been slaughtered, and your first concern is who's getting the most traffic to their tweets. And speaking of tweets, some of them were almost as soul-crushingly depraved as the attack itself.
The murdered victims were in a church. If prayers did anything, they'd be alive, you worthless sack of shit.
Right, so your gut reaction to 26 Christians being massacred is to insult Christians and Christianity. That's horrible.
Sutherland Springs is in rural Texas. These were all likely 45 voters. This is karma in action, gun riddance.
Oh, and the children who died?
You gotta crack eggs to make an omelette.
No words, just no words.
Innocent people go to church on Sunday to honour their God and while doing so get shot and killed. What country? America. Why? Republicans!
Statistically, 72% of the victims were Republicans, probably more. So hashtag not all Muslims are to blame for terror, but all Republicans are to blame for one guy shooting up a church full of mostly Republicans. James T. Hodgkinson, a Democrat, just tried to massacre a bunch of Republicans 5 months ago. They were still removing the dead bodies from the church when she tweeted that. Let that sink in.
Don't worry, everybody. It was a white man who slaughtered half of the church in Texas. That means everything's just fine. No terrorism.
First off, if your response to the slaughter of 26 white people is to get on Twitter and spew anti-white racism, take a serious look in the friggin' mirror. And if he did it because he hated Christians, then it was terrorism, you relentless prick. Terrorism is based on motive, not skin colour. How many times do I have to say it? Let's be honest here, the West in general has a massive problem with Islamic terrorism. America has a massive problem with mass shootings, and people downplay or exaggerate one or the other based on their politics. Why can't we just acknowledge that both are a huge problem? And whereas with Islamic terrorists, the attackers are motivated by the promise of a glorious afterlife, domestic mass shooters seem to be motivated by the belief that there is no afterlife. They're bathed in a culture that exalts narcissism and the idea that anyone can achieve instant fame, and that fame is all that matters. Not through talent or hard work, but by generating mindless controversy, the ultimate extreme example of which is by carrying out an atrocity. And the media instantly provides these losers with the posthumous celebrity that they craved their entire life.
We've had 20 years of mass murders, throughout which I have repeatedly told CNN and our other media, if you don't want to propagate more mass murders, don't start the story with sirens blaring.
The school day had only just begun when the attacker struck.
Don't have photographs of the killer.
The 17-year-old's 3-hour rampage ended in his own death.
Don't make this 24/7 coverage.
The German Chancellor is about to give her reaction. We'll bring that to you live.
Do everything you can not to make the body count the lead story.
Carnage in the classroom, 16 people are dead.
Not to make the killer some kind of anti-hero.
Dressed in black combat gear, the gunman opened fire at random.
Do localize this story to the affected community and make it as boring as possible in every other market. Because every time we have intense saturation coverage of a mass murder, we expect to see 1 or 2 more within a week.
But how can we stop turning mass shooters into macabre celebrities without limiting press freedom? It's virtually impossible. As opposed to Islamic terrorists, whose entire existence is enriched with meaning, however barbaric it seems to us, the domestic mass shooters' radicalization process seems to stem from a vacuum of meaning and purpose in life. A vacuum that's easily filled by despair and nihilism. I think we need to dig deeper and realize that these kids come from a culture that's lost faith in itself. Society is becoming more and more atomized, and that lack of empathy and cohesion is sure to produce one thing: lonely, isolated, alienated monsters who lash out with brutal, bloody resentment. Please celebrate the lives of the victims. Please celebrate the heroes. The mother who died while protecting her young children. The residents who chased the gunman away, preventing an even higher death toll. Please donate to the Sutherland Springs Church via the link in the description. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that, and click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.